Being a parent isn't a reasonable thing. It's a very hard thing. I'm a parent and I know. Okay, I'm a new parent. I only have one child maybe, but I am learning that there's a lot to being a parent that you didn't expect. It's not just, oh, isn't baby cute? There's a lot of labor and a lot of...
In 1985, Dee Snider walked into a Senate hearing room in Washington, D.C. and defended rock and roll against the most powerful censorship campaign in American music history. He was articulate. He was fearless. He was everything the genre needed him to be at that moment. And the rock community has been trying to get him to shut up ever since. Paul Stanley of Kiss has called him a wannabe and a buffoon. Nikki Sixx of Mötley Crüe has publicly slammed aging rock stars who will not stop talking. And everyone knew who he meant. Zakk Wylde staged a public intervention begging Snider to stop doing reality television. His own bandmates spent 40 years treating him like the dorky kid from Long Island who never truly belonged. Dee Snider is one of the most recognized frontmen in rock history. He is also one of the least popular people in the rooms where rock musicians actually gather. This is why. Segment 1. The Dorky Kid Who Never Belonged. Twisted Sister was not Dee Snider's band. J.J. French founded it. Eddie Ojeda was already there. When Snider joined in 1976, he was a suburban kid from Long Island walking into a New York City club band that already had an identity. From day one, the other members treated him like exactly what he was, the new guy who did not fit. French and Ojeda viewed Snider as a rube, useful because he could sing, but not part of their world. In the 2016 documentary We Are Twisted Effing Sister, Snider made an admission staggering for a frontman who had been with the band for 40 years. He said he had never truly felt accepted as the lead singer by the original members until after the documentary's premiere. 40 years. The man who wrote We're Not Gonna Take It spent 4 decades wondering if his own band wanted him there. That insecurity may explain everything that came next. Segment 2. The album that turned a band into a backing track. In 1987, Dee Snider was working on a solo album with producer Beau Hill. The material was his. The sessions were his. The band was not involved. But when Atlantic Records realized a Dee Snider solo project would sell less than a Twisted Sister album, they forced the release under the band's name. That decision would have been manageable if Snider had brought the band in to actually play on the record. He did not. Studio musicians performed the majority of the parts because the producer felt they sounded better than the actual members of Twisted Sister. The album flopped. The band broke up shortly after, and a resentment was planted, the feeling among the other members that Snider viewed Twisted Sister not as a partnership, but as a vehicle for his personal ambitions. Segment 3. The PMRC. Hero to the world, traitor to the scene. In 1985, Snider testified before the Senate against Tipper Gore's Parents Music Resource Center. He was brilliant, he was composed, he was articulate and sober, and that was the problem. Snider's defense of rock music was built on proving that he was one of the good ones, a clean Christian family man who did not drink or do drugs. His argument was essentially, this music is not dangerous because I am not dangerous. Look at me. I am respectable.
Being a parent isn't a reasonable thing. It's a very hard thing. I'm a parent and I know. Okay, I'm a new parent. I only have one child maybe, but I am learning that there's a lot to being a parent that you didn't expect. It's not just, oh, isn't baby cute? There's a lot of labor and a lot of...
The musicians who actually were dangerous, the ones who drank, who used, who lived the life the PMRC was specifically targeting, heard that defense and understood what it really meant. Snider was not defending them. He was defending himself while implicitly confirming that the wilder artists might actually be the problem. From that moment on, Dee Snider was no longer a rock star who had defended rock and roll. He was a guy who had defended his own brand by positioning himself as better than his peers. The rock community has never fully forgiven him for it. Segment 4. The hair metal hypocrite. For years, Dee Snider has used his platform to blame other bands for killing hair metal. Tesla, Warrant, Winger. He has publicly accused them of leaning too far into power ballads and acoustic sets, arguing that they softened the genre and made it vulnerable to the grunge takeover. The rock community has responded with a single devastating word: hypocrite. Because Dee Snider recorded acoustic versions of We're Not Gonna Take It, he made Love Is for Suckers, an album that was pure pop metal. He presided over the exact same commercial calculations that he now criticizes other bands for making. The only difference is his version of selling out did not sell. Snider positions himself as the judge of everyone else's authenticity while ignoring his own compromises. Those opinions always seem to conclude that Dee Snider did it right and everyone else did it wrong. Segment 5. Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, and the Kiss War. It started in 2014 when Gene Simmons declared rock was dead. Snider publicly refuted him and blamed the decline of rock on greedy big-city record company moguls. It escalated in 2015 when Snider criticized Kiss for allowing current members to wear the original makeup of Ace Frehley and Peter Criss, calling it insulting to fans. Paul Stanley's response was immediate and brutal. He called Snider a wannabe and a buffoon. Snider fired back by challenging Stanley to a vocal face-off, claiming he would bury him. It has never stopped. As recently as March 2025, Snider was still calling Kiss's Las Vegas reunion plans insulting and accusing them of setting a new record for farewell tour hypocrisy. The overwhelming sentiment is not that Snider is wrong about Kiss. Plenty of people share those criticisms. It is that he will not stop. He cannot resist inserting himself into every Kiss conversation, every Kiss controversy, every Kiss decision. Segment 6. Calling Vince Neil a murderer. In 2016, Dee Snider crossed a line that most rock musicians would never touch. In an interview, he brought up the 1984 drunk driving crash that killed Hanoi Rock's drummer Nicholas Dingley. He did not call it a tragedy. He called Vince Neil a murderer. He went further, questioning why Neil never served serious jail time and calling out the rock community for being comfortable with it under the banner of rock and roll. There are people who agree with the substance of what Snider said. The crash was devastating. The sentence was lenient. Those are facts. But the rock community's reaction was not about the facts. It was about who was saying them. Dee Snider was not at the scene. He was not involved. He was a peer who decided, 32 years after the fact, to appoint himself as the moral authority on someone else's worst moment. He does not just have opinions, he delivers verdict. Segment 7. Nikki Sixx fires back. The Vince Neil comments did not go unanswered. Nikki Sixx, Mötley Crüe's bassist, gave interviews slamming aging rock stars who were still trying to act 25 when they were 65, who passed judgment on other people's lives to stay relevant, and who had nothing going on in their own careers except the constant need to be heard. Sixx never said Snider's name. He did not have to. Everyone in the rock world knew exactly who he was talking about. The criticism of Dee Snider is not that he is wrong, it is that he is relentless. He cannot let a controversy pass without weighing in. He cannot exist in the rock world without positioning himself as its referee, and referees, by definition, are not players. Segment 8. Zakk Wylde's intervention. Of all the criticisms leveled at Dee Snider, the one that probably stung the most came from Zakk Wylde, Ozzy Osbourne's guitarist and the frontman of Black Label Society. During a public roast, Wylde looked directly at Snider and told him he was surrounded by people who cared about him. He said, "This was not a roast. It was an intervention, and the thing Snider needed to stop doing was reality television. It was delivered as a joke." But nobody in the room was confused about the real message. Celebrity Apprentice, growing up twisted. The parade of television appearances that had turned Dee Snider from a heavy metal frontman into a celebrity personality. Wylde was saying what a lot of people in the rock world had been thinking, that Snider had sold whatever credibility he had left for screen time. When Zakk Wylde tells you that you have a problem, the genre listens. Segment 9. The Megaphone and the Trash Cans. When Manowar and Hanoi Rocks allegedly mocked Twisted Sister as a joke in the early 1980s, Snider did not let it go. He responded with a public letter in a magazine challenging them to a physical fight. On the day of the proposed confrontation, Snider showed up with a megaphone. He walked around the area calling for the members of Manowar and Hanoi Rocks to come out, and at one point was looking into trash cans and mocking them for hiding. Motorhead's Lemmy Kilmister was there to back Snider up. Snider himself later admitted he was acting like a huge jerk during that period. The incident is funny in retrospect, but it shows that Dee Snider's need to have the last word, to escalate every slight into a public spectacle, to never let anything go, that has been his operating system since the beginning. Segment 10. The SF Pride Disaster. When both sides turned on him. In 2023, Dee Snider managed to alienate both sides of the political spectrum at the same time. It started when Paul Stanley posted a statement criticizing gender-affirming care for children. The statement was widely condemned as transphobic. Dee Snider decided to repost it with his own endorsement, adding a comment about how he had felt pretty too as a young man and was glad his parents did not jump to any rash conclusions. San Francisco Pride had invited Snider to perform "We're Not Gonna Take It" as the official anthem of their celebration. They immediately rescinded the invitation and dropped the song entirely. Snider's response made things worse. Instead of apologizing, he doubled down. He turned one of the most famous protest anthems in rock history, a song that had been adopted by the LGBTQ+ community, by protesters, by underdogs everywhere, into a symbol of its author's inability to read the room. Segment 11, replaced by Sebastian Bach. In 2026, the final chapter. Dee Snider resigned from Twisted Sister's 50th anniversary tour due to health concerns. The remaining members, JJ French and Eddie Ojeda, canceled the full reunion tour and then announced Sebastian Bach would fill in for a handful of select dates. Sebastian Bach, the former frontman of Skid Row, and original bassist Mark Mendoza was not even included in the plans. Snider gave his blessing. He said he totally approved, but the optics told a different story. After 40 years of positioning himself as the indispensable voice of Twisted Sister, the band found someone else within weeks. The music lives on, the songs still fill arenas, and the man who wrote them is watching from home. It is either the natural end of a legendary career or the final proof of what his critics have been saying for decades, that the rock world was always more interested in the music of Twisted Sister than in the opinions of the man who made it.